What's up, critical mass? I'm waiting for the chat to fluff up. And we're gonna get right on into it. Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon. I hope everyone is having a good Tuesday. So I guess I'll start my stream with saying this. Remember, y'all, it's never a problem, it's never an issue when the ruling class has a plan, when the business class has a plan, when they have a plan of violence. It's only a problem when we have a plan, when we read books that have strategies that have proven to work, where not a single person has been hurt, harmed, or killed. So, yeah, I feel like, I streamed this book last summer. I was a little early. Now I feel like we're ready for this. We're right on time for this. So, okay, there's 3 people in here, so I'll get started. Let me read a little bit about on violence, right? Because we can't say violence. All right. The colonialist bourgeoisie is aided and abetted in the pacification of the colonized by the inescapable powers of religion. So I haven't even begun to touch on anything, and we're gonna open up with a fucking banger like this. So this should let y'all know what you're in for. I'm gonna stream as long as I can today. Okay? All the saints who turned the other cheek, who forgave those who trespassed against them, who without flinching were spat upon and insulted, are championed and shown as an example. The elite of the colonized countries, those emancipated slaves, once they are at the head of the movement, inevitably end up producing an ersatz struggle. They use the term slavery of their brothers to shame the slave drivers or to provide their oppressors' financial competitors with an ideology of insipid humanitarianism. Never, in fact, do they actually appeal to the slaves. Never do they actually mobilize them. On the contrary, at the moment of truth for them, the lie, the brandish, the threat of mass mobilization as a decisive weapon. Hold on. Hello? Ugh. Don't leave. Please don't leave, y'all. Told me to go live, and if you're not handling this, where did he go? Okay, sorry about that. Okay, of mass mobilization, a decisive weapon that would, as if by magic, put an end to the colonial regime. There are revolutionaries, obviously, within these political parties among the cadres who deliberately turn their backs on the farce of national independence. But their speeches, their initiatives, and their angry outbursts very soon antagonize the party machine. These factions are gradually isolated, then removed altogether. At the same time, as if they were a dialectical concomitants, the colonial police swoops down upon them. Hounded in the towns, shunned by the militants, rejected by the party leaders, these undesirables, with their inflammatory attitude, end up in the countryside. It is then they realize, in a kind of intoxication, that the peasant masses latch onto their every word and do not hesitate to ask them the question for which they are not prepared. When do we start? This encounter between the revolutionaries from the towns and the peasant population will be dealt with later on. For the time being, our attention should focus on the political parties in order to demonstrate the nevertheless progressive nature of their action. Whoa, hey, what's up? Thank you for all the chat emojis. What's up, y'all? Welcome to my live. We're getting into Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon. You know, a lot of these tactics used by the ruling class or the elites, you know, they don't give a shit if you're like, oh, you know, capitalism sucks. What they do give a shit about is if you're like, capitalism sucks and let's do another system. They want you to believe, as long as you believe that there's nothing else out there, that capitalism is the only tried and true way to organize a society. They don't even care if you criticize capitalism, as long as you think it's the only way, you know? And so, yeah, I want to bring back books like this that lay out very plainly and clearly how there were guerrillas, and I guess they called them guerrillos, can't say it, the Tupamoros more specifically, that influenced, you know, all these other resistance fighters and adopted some of their tactics. So that's really what I would want to focus on. You know, sure, we can sit here and talk about the midterms, and sure, we can sit here and talk about, oh, you know, we wouldn't be in this situation if Kamala was president, blah, blah, blah. Anyone that's talking to you about the midterms, I'm telling you right now, they're dumb as fuck, or they don't give a fuck about you, or they're trying to grift off of you. And they may very well not even realize what they're doing. A lot of people walking around this earth right now got their blinders on. They have no fucking idea what is going on around the world, you know? They only know what's going on, like, in their house and maybe at their school. And that's where it stops, you know, in Fox News. So again, this book here, we have plenty of examples of how, you know, these tactics have been implemented globally, and how they have worked, and how, you know, they would hold whole entire towns and cities and banks up. You know, they'd kidnap leaders, and it wouldn't hurt them or like kill them or anything, but they did this long enough for all the people in the town to see what the, like, hey, we're fucking for real. Like, y'all tired of this? We're tired of this. Look, listen, and learn to these tactics that we are demonstrating for you all. So that's where we are right now, because I feel like, you know, we're all kind of waiting for someone to come swoop down and do their big one. You know, save America, save the world from America, save Americans from their governments. But those have already been done, you guys. You guys do realize that, right? The flotillas have gone out. People have set themselves on fire. Other leaders have divested. I mean, everything and everyone that could have come in to try to put a stop or stall, like those efforts have already been exhausted. So what's up, Chris? Welcome to my live. So this is where we're at now. And the sooner that we all realize where we're at, the sooner we can get the hardest parts of this transition of power, aka revolution, the sooner, quicker, we can get the hard part over with. And yeah, another world, better world can be possible. Okay. When the political leader summons the people to a meeting, there could be said to be blood in the air. Yet very often the leader is mainly preoccupied with a show of force so as not to use it. The excitement that is fostered, however, the comings and the goings, the speech-making, the crowds, the police presence, the military might, the arrests and the deportation of leaders, all this agitation gives the people the impression that the time has come for them to do something. During these times of unrest, the political parties multiply the calls for calm to the left, while to the right, they search the horizon, endeavoring to decipher the liberal intentions of the colonial authorities. In order to maintain their stamina and their revolutionary capabilities, the people also resort to retelling certain episodes in the life of the community. The outlaw, for example, who holds the countryside for days against the police, hot on his trail, or who succumbs after police officers in a single-handed combat, or who commits rather than give up his accomplices, all constitute for the people role models, action schemas, and heroes. And there's no point, obviously, in saying that such a hero is a thief or a degenerate. If the act for which this man is prosecuted by the colonial authorities is an act of exclusively directed against the colonial individual or colonial asset, then the demarcation line is clear and manifest. The process of identification is automatic. In this maturation process, we should also underscore the historical role of national resistance to the colonial conquest. The major figures in the history of the colonized are always those who led the national resistance against foreign invasion. Okay, I'm gonna read this again. The major figures in history of the colonized are always those who led the national resistance against foreign invasion. Behanzin, Sundiata, Samari, and Abdelkader are revived with particular fervor during the period preceding the actual struggle. This is proof that the people are preparing to march again to break the lull introduced by colonialism and make history. The emergence of the new nation and the demolition of the colonial system are the result of either a violent struggle by the newly independent people or outside violence by other colonized people, which has an inhibiting effect on the colonial regime. Colonized people are not alone. Despite the efforts of colonialism, their frontiers remain permeable to news and rumors. They discover that violence is atmospheric. It breaks out sporadically here and there, and it sweeps away the colonial regime. The success of this violin plays not only an informative role, but also an operative one. The great victory of the Vietnamese people at Dien Bien Phu is no longer strictly speaking a Vietnamese victory. Okay, I'm gonna Well, I'm gonna skip over this a little bit. But let us return to this atmospheric violence, this violence rippling under the skin. We have seen as it develops how a number of driving mechanisms pick it up and convey it to an outlet. In spite of the metamorphosis imposed on it by the colonial regime and tribal or regional conflicts, violence continues to progress. The colonized subject identifies his enemy, puts a name to all of his misfortunes, and casts all exacerbated hatred and rage in this new direction. But how do we get from the atmosphere violence to setting violence in motion? What blows the lid? First of all, there is the fact that such a development has a certain impact on the colonist's state of bliss. The colonist who knows the colonial subject realizes from several pointers that something is in the process of changing. The good natives become scarce. Silence falls when the oppressor approaches. Sometimes looks harden and attitudes and remarks are downright hostile. The nationalist parties become restless, call for more meetings, and at the same time, security is increased and troop reinforcements are dispatched. The colonists, especially those isolated on their farms, are the first to become alarmed. I wonder why. They demand drastic measures. The authorities do, in fact, take dramatic measures. They arrest one or two leaders, organize military parades, maneuvers, and flyovers. Jesus Christ. 1 second, y'all. Well, no, just keep it on. Did you just open it and then close it real fast? No, you didn't? You just did it randomly? I don't know, guys. I have the worst luck when it comes to going live. I'll catch you next time. Bye.